thank you for joining us today for another Memories of Plymouth program. This is the beginning, it's the beginning of our 6th season. We've been running this that's for the first graders who are out there right there. All right. Our goal in our Memories program is to collect and save memories, stories that you people have brought to us over the years. I'm Louise McCormack from the Plymouth Historical Society, and it's our pleasure today to have 2 people with us. I hope you enjoy our interview. To my immediate left, we have Stephen Hall, and next to him, Brother Gardner Hall. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a series of questions we'd like to ask you today, and maybe we'll just end up going back and forth. You can chime in whenever you want to. Audience, are you ready? Let's begin. Please state your name and where you were born.
Stephen Samuel Hall, New Haven, Connecticut, on the 19th of January, 1940.
1940.
Gardner Lawton Hall, born in Plymouth, Skiva Spear Memorial, December 18th, 1953.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about your family a little bit, if you don't mind. How about Mom and Dad?
Samuel Gerber Hall was born in North Providence, Rhode Island, in 1915.
17. Sorry about
The
that.
17. It was Mother that was born.
Mother's 15. Yeah.
Right.
Edit that.
Pretty close though.
And Bernice Irma Hall, Irma Maddox, was born in Somerville, Massachusetts in 1917.
Okay.
1915.
And we don't have
We swapped
1950.
us.
swapped off.
That's what I'm here for.
And you have siblings?
Yes. I have 2 boys, Mark and Sam, and
We're talking siblings or children?
Let's-
Either way. I'll start
sorry.
with children,
Okay.
and because
Okay.
we're started. I have a son, Brayton Anthony Hall, and a daughter, Kazimiera Elizabeth Hall.
Did you have
Jeez,
a
I
hard
to
time
remember.
on that?
I did. I'm like, going, what the heck is her middle name?
We're going to do a lot of editing
Katie
today.
Hall, that's all. Let's go with Katie Hall.
And do you have any other brothers and sisters?
We have a brother, Keith Hall, in Laconia, and Penelope Lois Hall, unfortunately deceased 2002.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about your education. Some of it was in Plymouth and some of it was outside of Plymouth. Steve, you want to start?
yes, I bounced around fairly early on, and the first education was a kindergarten in Rolla, Missouri, at a nun school, and then I attended 1st grade in Greenville, Rhode Island, 2nd grade in Alexandria, New Hampshire's village school, 1-room school, 8 grades, no running water, and a wood stove. And then went to the Bristol school system through the 7th grade and arrived in Plymouth for the 8th grade, and then went to Holderness.
The boys' school.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And eventually went to Yale and finally got an MBA Knights at UNH.
The word finally. I don't want to ask any
Well,
more
I was
questions.
well, I was married at the time, so it was,
When you can.
yep, you got it.
You've got it. Gardner?
Started in Plymouth. Actually went to Mrs. Blake's, if you would call it a preschool now, from 3 to 5, and then entered the school system, Plymouth Middle School, and went through the 8th grade. And then also went to Holderness Boys School. It became co-ed while I was there. In fact, my grade graduated the first female in 1971.
Can I interrupt and ask?
Sure.
What year? Oh, there we go. That's it.
1971.
1971.
Yeah. And it was Hannah Roberts.
Wow.
And then I did a semester at Tufts University and bounced around, did St. Anselm's, Plymouth State, and UNH.
Wow.
All of which only accumulated a little over a year's worth of credits. So I was, floundering there.
I hope the television isn't on me on that one.
That's okay.
Talk a little bit, if you would, about school for a bit. Maybe some of the teachers, maybe some of the kids that you went to school with. Is there a memory or two that comes from your years in elementary or middle school, high school, that you'd like to share?
Well, the super teacher in Bristol was Mrs. Baker, the wife of the game warden, Slim Baker. And I had her for both 6th and 7th grades. And for whatever reason, our class seemed to teach and learn to the higher level rather than the lower level of the class, which was delightful. When I came to Plymouth, the two teachers that stood out to me at Holderness was Lois Arthur Wiles, the senior master over there, who he taught physics, chemistry, and trigonometry, and he was an impressive individual. Plus, the ski coach and history teacher, help me on that.
Don Henderson?
Don Henderson, yeah. Don Henderson was the first person that assigned a real college level term paper, and which I loved and ate it right up, and was very happy.
I'm going to again ask a question before we go on. Don Henderson, I know him as a coach as well. Am I making the right assumption, because I don't have an answer here? If you taught at Holderness, you didn't have to take physical education? Were you required to be involved in a sport, some kind of extracurricular activity?
Absolutely.
As far as the professors go?
Well, they too, but
They participated at multiple levels.
Yes.
And so did students. You had either a job or, everybody had a job there.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I remember when we went to track, Lois Arthur Wiles came out to do some coaching as well as build the hurdles. So, and I would have never guessed that he would have done anything for sports. And here he was. And Don Hagerman, when I was in freshman year, suited up in football gear from his Dartmouth era and played scrimmages with the boys.
Moose Hagerman.
Yes, Moose Hagerman.
That was his nickname.
Wow.
Because he was a big guy.
He
Interesting.
had big hands.
Yeah.
Favorite subjects while you were there in high school?
Probably Jim Page's ancient history
Ancient history.
course. Very, I don't know, I'm not super into history, but that course was very enjoyable. I liked it a lot.
Don Henderson's course, and Lois Wiles trigonometry. My father was a forester and surveyor, and I was the chain man very, very early on his private operations on weekends and holidays. And all of a sudden, all of the stuff that I had been working with him on came alive in Lois Arthur Wiles' trigonometry course.
How old were you when you were started as chain boy?
Oh, maybe 9 or 10.
I think I was 8.
Yeah, it was
And
pretty.
when you have
was pretty
a
early.
220-pound man on the other end going, hold it tight, and you're 8 years old,
Yeah.
you either go on your face or you hold it tight.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's some good memories there.
Oh, that's neat. Thank you. Thank you. Let's chat about occupations, businesses that you have held over time. Did you work when you were in high school? Did you work when you were in junior high school? Let's go way back.
Okay. At 14, I ended up owning a chainsaw at 98 pounds and peeling hardwood pulp on family land over in Alexandria for a couple of years, and then graduated a bit to a little more than that. Then my brother and Keith and I applied herbicide to utility rights of way to put ourselves through Holderness and Yale. From there on, basically I went in the Army and got out, and I worked for a variety of companies, but I've been in international construction since 1976 for 3 different companies.
Wow.
One of them, the largest of its kind in the United States, Bechtel,
Spectrum.
that's Bechtel. They did the big dig.
In Boston?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Halliburton style.
Well,
You competitors, really.
we like to,
You're not your buff.
yes, we like to consider ourselves more ethical.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Tenny had already started when I was really small, so my first memory was picking stones off the practice slope at 5 years old, while my father and John French mulched and seeded it, and of course the balance of the family members all picking stones off the slope. And then went on to work summers to a certain extent at Tenny, painting chair slats, things like that. Worked after school at Holderness Boys School, cleaning dormitories. The IRS still owes me a refund from whenever that was. I was 14 years old. Where's my refund? But at any rate, we're talking dollars.
Was that legal to work when you were 14?
Yes,
It
Yeah.
was.
yeah.
Okay.
I had all kinds of permission slips. But then worked as a ski instructor at Tenny, and basically over the years performed every job you could do at a ski area. Went on after school to made a pub at Tenny with Mike Long and the Little Lodge Tavern. We ran that for 4 years and also took over the concession. And then we went down and built, along with Lenny Lenentine as a partner, we built 52nd Street Tavern in Tilton. Became the largest single draft account for Budweiser in the state of New Hampshire. In our first week, 52 barrels of beer. You're welcome. And then I worked as a mechanic. I ran Neil McIver's wood processor for 8 months. Worked with Bill Dunn as a foreign auto mechanic. Worked as a carpenter. Did River Ridge with 2 other partners in Plymouth. And also took over my father's mill, which Steve ran for 2 years, I believe, and in Thornton, Sam Hall Poles and Piling, and ran that for 15 years. And took a couple of years off, built part of my house, and then went on and worked for Grady Built, building custom homes up in Campton. We were actually building in Waterville and Lone at the time.
As you think back, with all your businesses, occupations, professions, is there something that comes to mind that was so enjoyable for you?
Well, it took me to all over the world, to foreign lands. Since I've left school, I've lived and, for the most part, worked in 47 states and 32 countries. And not as a tourist. And that was, I chose the adventure as opposed to climbing the career ladder. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
One more time, 47 states?
47 states,
How many countries?
32 countries.
Amazing, amazing.
You vacated Tehran, what, a week before they took the hostages? Something like that?
No,
2
no, it was 2 weeks. We were evacuated with what we could put under our seats with 48 hours notice, 2 weeks before His Imperial Majesty left, the Shah. It was much later that the hostages were taken.
Wow.
I'd have to say probably the pole mill was just kind of a man's world. You went up there, no offense to any ladies out there, but it was 7 3/4 acres of an old gravel pit, and it was solitude, machinery running all the time, but just hard work. The only downside was I have injuries I'll take to my grave from working with the heavy poles and everything.
No heat, no light, no running water.
And no electricity. Yeah, right. So it was actually very pleasant working there, though.
Oh, that's great.
That was
It was in a sunny spot.
it was in a great spot.
Yeah.
Nobody bothered you.
Yep.
Solitude,
Solitude.
Yeah.
nature.
A lot of noise, but solitude.
Interesting. Are you still working?
I am, and we both are.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working under contract for a mine a phosphate mine in Florida, keeping their capital equipment acquisitions on schedule.
I'm just doing small to medium carpentry still, and I do a little maintenance for the library.
Oh, that's great.
I think some of the projects that you have they're interesting to me anyway, like vitrifying nuclear waste and,
Yes.
and disposing of World War I ordnance and things like that. And,
Mustard gas.
Yes, smelting over in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
And clean rooms in China and all of that, and Bell helicopter factories.
Yeah, well, I always got interesting projects.
And fires in Kuwait.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How recently was that?
What, in
The
the fires in
Kuwait.
Kuwait?
The
Right.
Kuwait oil fires.
Right after Saddam Hussein vacated the country, he opened the wells and torched them. There was 727 open and 650 burning. And they were extinguished in a record time of 7 months. Red Adair said it'd take 5 years, and he wasn't blowing smoke. At the time, given the pace at which it was going, that he made the comment, it would have taken 5 years. But everybody learned, and it ended up being a training mission for the entire world's oil patch.
And what responsibility would you have had for that?
I was an expediter in Dubai, we were buying about $40 to $50 million off the shelf in the immediate region and shipping it up to Kuwait to support the firefighters' efforts. We were part of a 10,000 person support facility for all the firefighters.
Amazing. Thank you. Wow. Oh. What you're sharing, I don't think I need to be here.
I like those stories.
I do
Figure
too.
somebody else would.
I do too. Were either of you in the military?
Yes.
Okay.
I was, the minute I got out of college, we began to, the selective service was looking for me. And so I ended up signing up in Fort Douglas, Utah, where I was working on the Denver Rio Grande Western, because I was about to be drafted. And I decided that I would rather do something that would benefit me as opposed to something that would get the draft out of the way. So I joined the U.S. Army Transportation Corps and went through basic training and the transportation school. And lo and behold, I got assigned to sunny Italy for 2 years and 7 months. And right there, within a week, the international bug bit me, and I was determined to have international business be part of the rest of my life.
So you've traveled the world?
Yes, at others' expense.
It's a good way of planning.
Yeah.
Did you ever think when you were children that you would end up doing the occupations that you have been involved with?
I would have told people that they were smoking the Californian cash crop.
Yeah, likewise.
Let's go on. Let's go on. There's children out there. There's children out there. If I said to you, let's go backwards a little bit, when you're a child, in your youth, what were some of the things that, good memories that you had?
Oh, Lord. Endless, it seemed like. One of the things about the family is that they refused to have television in the house. Right. And as a result of this, the concept was it interferes with academic achievement. The result of this was that we were always doing unusual, interesting things all the time. My recollection is that none of my siblings and I hung out anywhere particularly. We were always doing something interesting.
I want to know what's interesting.
Well, for me, of course,
Well,
you're 14 years older than I am, and I grew up at 8 Garland Street and then 2 Russell Street, so my whole childhood was Plymouth.
yeah.
And it was idyllic. It was really just wonderful. My second dad would come back from Yale, and then we'd play a scram with our neighborhood kids, and there'd be 20 kids at a whack, all playing what we call scram, which is basically a form of hide and seek. And the Keniston's Keniston's tree was always the goal.
The goal, yep.
You need to explain that to me. Matt Keniston's
Well,
tree.
Matt Keniston owned the theater in town, and
He lived right across the street from 8 Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And on the end of his property was a big tree.
big maple tree.
Yeah.
I actually got a branch of that, and I buried my sister's ashes in a container I made out of that tree, to commemorate our childhood there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I want more fun things that you did as a child, though.
Oh, let's get away from the ghoulish stuff, yes. Well, again, it just was, the whole neighborhood was just
Oh, yeah.
tons of kids, and nobody locked their doors, and then every household had its own call. My mother had a whistle, and she would, I don't remember, I think she had 2 blasts for me and like 3 for Penny or something, and then there were other mothers around the neighborhood that had similar calls, and every kid knew what it was when it was time to go home. No cell phones, none of that stuff.
Yep.
And then I always remember Virginia Dunn, because she called, and she would call all her kids, and it would go, Billy, Barbie, Becky, and you'd hear this going on and go,
Yeah.
you gotta go.
Charlotte Jorgensen would come out on the steps and blow her police whistle for Lee Jorgensen to come.
Wow. Were you ever naughty when you were young kids? Between us, just the three of us,
Uh-huh.
not the audience.
Now,
Well,
you're only naughty if you get caught.
Oh,
So
that's exactly
I was a
right.
remarkably
Yeah.
well-behaved child.
I managed to avoid everything
I
that I would be in
You got
real
in trouble for smoke in the courtroom.
Oh yeah,
Black powder smoke from touching off your
yeah.
muzzle
it
loaders
was
in the firing range.
yeah, because the jail was next
The
door.
jail was getting fumigated there. And I, one time, I set the woods on fire, but that was just a small thing.
keep going.
Oh, Bill Dunn and I, fascinated with fire, you know, and too foolish to understand the dangers, set a pretty good portion of the Fox woods on fire at 3 years old. And when we realized, after I ran home and got a glass of water thinking that was going to put out a fire, and it didn't work, you know, one of those. We went back and came up with an alibi that some bad boys dressed as cowboys had set the fire, and we ran away because we knew that was bad. Well, we were out in the street with a fire department and grilled, you know, you can go to jail for this. And like, at 3 years old, it made quite an impression. And needless to say, that was my first and last forest fire. So all you kids out there, don't play with matches.
And your glass of water that certainly was going to take out the fire.
And I remember, I can still recall throwing that. It was, the blaze was so hot, and it must have been 8 feet tall, and I went like this, and it just, sun, you know, burned the whole side of my face, and I went, this is not going to work.
Did you have friends during this time? Would you share a couple of the friends that you got
Well,
into trouble with?
Lee Jorgensen.
Okay.
And I did know Wilbur Coffey and Billy Noyes.
And I see them every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Of course, my childhood bud, Bill Dunn, who he actually came over because he lived just 1 block away to go through Bachelor's yard and also Keniston's yard, and then he was at our doorstep.
Yeah.
And he'd come over in his diaper.
Yes. Yeah.
He was so short that
Yeah.
my mother would go to see, you know, who's here, and she would have a sense, and she'd go out and look, and here's this little kid in his diaper standing at the door, wouldn't say a thing, wouldn't knock, just waiting for me to come out and play. He was, you know, barely over a year.
Yeah, and she'd say, Gardner, it's
Yeah.
for you.
And does he ever talk to you? Oh yeah, he talks to me. But so.
Is Mr. Dunn still with us?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And have you cleared this story with him?
Hey,
Does he know?
I don't need to clear anything with him. He's got plenty of dirt on me.
All right, here we go. Let's get on before we get into more trouble.
Yes.
Childhood memories. I'm going to talk, I'll give you a word and I want you to come back at me if you will. If I said to you weather, what kind of weather systems have you been involved with? How do they affect you? And you can pass at any time. You can pass at any time.
What I really remember was the hurricanes Carol and Edna in, I think it was 1954. They came in quick succession, as you can see from the names. And they didn't do too much up here, but they really nailed down country. And we went down with the chainsaw and earned some extra money after both of them down in Rhode Island.
What, you were cutting logs, trees?
We were, well,
Clearing streets,
I was,
basically, right?
that's right.
Thank
We
you.
were clearing streets on people's land. Was private land. It wasn't for any kind of jurisdiction or whatever. But we ended up being on just one little street that was devastated down in Providence.
Well, Rhode Island gets, they're like,
Oh,
after,
the 38.
after Long Island, they get smacked.
Yeah, the 38 hurricane
can't
hit
hide.
them terribly, terribly.
I
mean,
went down once in the 70s,
Yeah.
and I don't remember exactly when, but it would have been in the 70s somewhere. Did the same thing.
Yeah,
Worked on one street with a chainsaw, my father and Keith,
yeah,
and just cut
yeah.
trees.
Unbelievable destruction.
I think I remember a story that you shared. You also did it in the town of Plymouth, and that was very beneficial to you? Cutting trees, and as a result of cutting them, did they pay for some of your education?
No, that was basically
Too many.
on family land in Alexandria.
Okay.
Not, but one summer we went up and cut a whole bunch of a terrific stand of poplar up with alfalfa, and shipped that over to an Excelsior mill over in Wolfboro. They were still making Excelsior.
Amazing.
Well, there were
Amazing.
lots of forest product factories around. Bridgewater had Sac Brock's Ladder-Round factory, and of course there was the
Beebe River.
Beebe
River
River.
with a white pine and rock maple, and there
Rochester Shoe Tree,
was but they
and Deming before that.
they brought in their wood from elsewhere.
Right, it's not a local species.
But there was the Shank Mill that had white birch. There were the whole area was full of either dairy farms or forest product industry related, whether it was people logging, people trucking, people cutting, or there were mills. It was that was basically the two mainstays of the entire Upper Valley.
Your background, does a flood come in mind? Can you remember a flood that might have affected you?
I remember the Wes Howard and I, they had a substantial flood, one of the ones marked on what was Norm's Gulf on the
Station.
wall. And I think it was close to 13 feet there. I don't know. But Wes Howard and I thought it was a great idea to get our kayaks, and we kayaked in, not knowing that it was under martial law, according to the state troopers on I-93, who yelled at us with a bullhorn and told us to get out. But we were kayaking over Deming Chevrolet, and we were going over cars, and it was exciting to, teenagers to be doing that. And, I remember Wes going to the phone booth and reaching down and pulled the phone out of the water and said, "Hey, I got a dial tone." And so the state police told us, "Get the heck out of the water," and we went back, and then the Plymouth police were telling us to get the heck, and we're like, the state police is telling us to get out, we got to get out here. So it was
You need to refrain from your stories because you're going to get into trouble.
oh no, there's a statute of limitation long gone.
Okay. Okay.
So that's a memory from a flood.
Well, I remember there's a photograph of Father up standing in a boat up in Beebe when they had a flood around 1954, I think.
Oh, that was, I remember.
And
Yeah. I don't remember that.
I
but
remember that it
aftermath.
did affect the railroad because they had construction trains come down from Lincoln all the way to the north side of Beebe River to repair some of the track.
Amazing. Amazing. Another one. Fairs.
Oh, the Plymouth Fair.
Plymouth Fair.
Yes.
The Plymouth Fair, of course, our father was He ran the Woodsman's contest there forever. And so I would, when he would go, either I or Penny and I would go, and we'd be dumped on the fair for the day, and then of course we'd watch the Woodsman's contest as well. But I remember it was such an event for me that because of Steve's connection with Italy, I spent the summer in Italy when I was 14 years old with his in-laws, which was a tremendous experience. 2.5 months of just going all over the place, living with them, not as a tourist, being embarrassed by every American tourist that I ever met there, of course. But I came home a few days early because I wanted to hit the Plymouth Fair. Can you believe that I gave up a part of a week in Italy because I had to go to the Plymouth Fair?
You didn't have to go. You wanted to
I
go.
wanted to go. I wanted to go. It was, I guess I was homesick by that point.
I think it's one of the saddest things that so many of us
Oh,
can
yes.
recall over time. As we drive by now, our memories just flood back to us.
Right.
I remember meeting, Father introducing me to, who was the sheriff, the long-serving sheriff of Grafton County?
Ash.
Ash?
Yeah, Herbie Ash.
Herbie Ash.
I met him when he was first running for office at the fair. And I always went, the fair was great. I ended up being very interested in the horse pulling. I didn't find the sulky races, well, of course, we all went as kids to Jimmy Lynch and his Hell Drivers.
Demolition Derby and
Yes. Yeah,
and his girlfriend Bura.
I can't remember that.
How can you remember these
but I
things?
She's
remember
this
that.
tall and this wide and has big drawers. Yeah, that's my girlfriend Bura.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
Not my joke, somebody else's.
I remember one event specifically where they built a wall of ice out of the ice house and head on a 1930s sedan into it, wide open. And
That
the one
sounds like an emergency visit to the hospital.
well, the one thing that I took away from that helped me later on was the guy jumped into the back seat at the last minute. And when I ended up having a problem like that with the family car, I threw myself just across the seat and just let it happen. And didn't ruffle my feathers at all.
Dad did that same thing. It didn't work out so well for him. He broke his neck on River Road
Yeah.
in 1964, April 3rd, on black ice. The tree that he hit was 6 inches off the pavement, and he spent 14 weeks in Hanover with tongs drilled in his head
Yeah.
and sandbags and flipped every so many hours.
77 days.
Yeah, and from there, from that bed, he dictated to my mother, and they continued to move forward with the big lift at Tenney, the 6,000-foot Stadley lift. And when it came in the fall, with his neck brace on, he went up and orchestrated the installation of that.
That's amazing. Your father, Dad, was involved with many things over his lifetime. Could you share?
So many.
I know that he was in Rotary, he was in the Daniel Webster Council of Boy Scouts. There was March of Dimes. He was in the Engineers and Foresters Society,
Right.
Yale Club of New Hampshire.
Then as he became more of a ski area
Oh yes, that was
operator,
Ski
was in the
93.
end, Ski 93, founding member of that.
Yeah.
And I often wonder because in Ski 93, I remember Dad putting forth the idea of reciprocal tickets. And that, and of course, with the Icon and all of those passes,
Yeah.
that's a huge thing now. But he had a lot of resistance to that from other members. They were concerned about how do you, what's the equity? You've got different size ski areas, you got, and they finally decided and went with a Ski 93 pass. But I almost think, at the very least, Dad was involved in what may have been the first ever reciprocal ticket in the ski industry. There's a really good chance that that was the case.
Wow.
Yeah.
And of course, they pioneered a number of things
Yes.
because they had that group of
Yes.
ski areas. Ski 93.
Wow. That just reminds me, we haven't talked much about Tenny Mountain, but you worked it. And when was it started? That's all I'm going to ask. When was it started?
As a business or construction?
As a business, when did it open up?
Well,
December 1960, and it's right on the sign, and
Yeah.
there's an image of that that you actually have.
Okay.
I don't know if Andrew can put that up, but
Okay.
and it's a sign, the original sign to Tenny, and Janny French, Penny, and I are standing underneath it, and there's a photograph of us in the
Yes.
Record Citizen,
I think we have it.
and that was taken by Bob Fry. I believe he took the photograph. I'm not positive of that.
Bob Fry, professor at
Yes,
the university.
He took a number of photographs that were used, for marketing purposes and stuff early on, and I think he may have taken that, but my memory's a little off on that.
Well, gentlemen, I have an offer. Would you at some point in time come back and we have another presentation, interview, and we talk only on Tenny Mountain?
Sure.
How
Why
it
not?
came to be,
Not a problem.
the evolution of it, etc.?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because your life, you're growing up.
Well,
That's
Stephen
what you
has
did.
the initial part of it, and of course, on through it.
Great.
And then, of course, I was quite involved on the, latter part of it.
And Mom and Dad were involved, and
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Mr. and Mrs.
yeah.
French were involved.
Yes.
Let's chat. I'll plan one
Right.
for us.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. You have no choice now. You're signed up. All right. Let's see. The next one I have on the list, family and friends, birthdays, weddings. Are there dates that you remember now, looking backwards? Happy days, sad days?
Wow, nothing comes to mind,
No.
just stands out. There
Okay.
was a lot of family and friends growing up in Plymouth at that time anyway. The college was so small,
Yes.
500 students, mostly female, phys ed.
Yeah.
So the rest of it was an entire village, which doesn't exist today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that was my next question coming up. Major changes that you have found over time.
Oh, wow. Two basic
I may have to stop you, all right? Okay.
two basic situations. Number one, the college. When I arrived here, I think that the college was 400 students in 1952. This would be September 1952. And I'm not sure what it is today, but it's about 10 times that size of undergrad. And they didn't have a grad program that I can recall at the 400 stage.
No, they had a graduate program in the late 1940s, and it was very, very small.
Oh.
Very, very small.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other is the railroad. And I say the railroad because Plymouth was the entrepot for the entire Baker and Upper Pemigewasset Valley. They were the big town, and they had the hospital, they had the car dealers, they had the feed and grain people, the coal and oil people, they had the department store, and maybe more than one. There was clothing outfits. They had, as we mentioned, the Shank Mill and the Miller Shoe Tree, and they also had profile clothing that was next to.
Yeah.
That's where the Thai restaurant is, I think.
Right, next to my dad's grandpa's store.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and of course they had the fair. And at that time, there were 3 trains each way each day, with a 4th that terminated here in the summer. And they would have a daily freight from Concord to Lincoln. They would have an every other day that went on on one day, Plymouth to Woodsville to White River Junction, and then returned the next day. They had Railway Express Agency, which is the same thing as UPS and FedEx today, a Merrimack Farmers Exchange, and Chase Feed and Grain. So that it was very, and the mail came. The Boston Globe came directly up to Clay's newsstand, packaged on the train. The milk was taken on the evening train going down south to the creameries. So it was very active. And today, the tracks are there. They're used occasionally. There is no freight service, only an occasional excursion train.
We have a hobo train that's coming
correct.
through occasionally
Yeah.
during the summer months.
Correct. So
Who was the engineer on that?
there was
Weren't you the first one?
no. I'm thinking of the engineer that I was friends. It was George Houston that used to live
You're not talking
in our
hobo now,
backyard. Yeah. I'm
You're
talking about
the regular railroad.
I'm talking about the Woodsville
Right.
freight. But yeah, I for what it's worth, I was the first engineer on the White Mountain Central and the first engineer on Hobo Railroad.
You're a celebrity.
Well,
You're a
if you
celebrity.
ask where I hung out in the rail
He
yard.
was up at Clark's, and lucky enough for Penny and me that he would drag us up there as well, and we spent a lot of time at Clark's Trading Post and sleeping in the cabooses, firing the cannon across the river and things like that, and then the whistle on the train
Yeah.
because my big brother drove the train, which was pretty cool to me.
It sounds really fun.
But
We
the-
talk about all the things that you did during your childhood and youth, and this sounds really fun.
Oh
It
yeah,
does.
well you
Yep.
see.
Again, idyllic
Mm-hmm.
in Plymouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, where are we? If I said to you, was there a person who influenced you as you were growing up? Who might it be? Gardner, want to take it?
Well, I can't ignore my father, of
Yeah.
course,
Okay.
our father.
Thank you, yeah.
He just a tremendous guy.
We learned an enormous amount out of him.
And the way he taught was
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
You're smart, figure it out. That was it.
Yeah.
But he would expose you to
Yes.
everything. I remember building the concrete, the stone building at Tenney. I was 20, I think. Keith had started it and he leveled it off for the first level, and then Keith went off and did his own thing, and early one morning, because my father woke up at 4 o'clock, to my chagrin, he, get up, you're building a building for me. And that's how I started building with Mike Long, Bill Boyle, Wes Howard, the four of us hand-placed all the stones in that 6-unit concrete apartment building on Tenney. That's the way he would get you started. Another day, a few years later, I woke up, he woke me up and said, "You're assistant manager at Tenney, let's get going." And I ran his survey crew with Stevie Batchelor, and I have multiple, he taught me surveying. I have multiple maps registered in the Grafton County Registry of Deeds. I ran multiple surveys for him as a teenager, 16 years old. I did full topographies, everything. Old school, no computers involved,
Yeah.
all longhand.
Yep.
And
What a
so
great
that's
job.
what he did.
It sounds like a great childhood.
It was very good.
You learned a great deal from your
Oh,
family.
unbelievable.
Yeah, oh, that's fun. I don't even dare ask this one. Did you ever have a favorite hangout? Because it seems like you were working all the time.
Well, my favorite hangout was number 1, the Braille Yard here, number 2, Clark's. I used to thumb up and back at 13 years old to Clark's in the summer.
Well, I spent a few hours at 3 years old running around the coal bins with Bill Dunn, of course, unbeknownst to our parents. So that was fun. You get nice and dirty and all of that. But the other place, we were always in the Fox Woods up there, which, as we got older, we decided it wasn't a great idea to burn it down. And we had multiple forts, Fort Pine Needle with, it was Bob Foley. I just remember so many kids and the Bolios and all of those kids. We were always building lean-tos and forts up in the woods, and we spent a huge amount of time up there.
Do you remember the 4th of July? Father took us up on the truck road to Tenney, where we celebrated it by blowing a whole bunch of
Yes. Rocks out of the road.
Yeah,
I remember because
Yeah.
John French, I was really small.
Yeah,
And
and
John
I-
French
I think Penny
Asked-
was there, and
asked me if I wanted to touch one off.
Yes.
And he let me put the wires on a car battery that they had. They were driving the Draper car up that back
I
road.
think so. Yeah.
But I remember John said, after a few, he goes, "You want to do?" I was 5.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was. And yes, I do want to do that. Thank you
no
very
kid
much.
is gonna.
Ba-boom!
Here we go.
Yeah.
Fox Park again.
Give me some dynamite and I'm a happy kid.
Yeah.
Let's see, I better get back to my work. You brought an artifact today. Would you like to share it a little bit?
This one here.
Sure, and then we'll start with that one if you'd like to.
Well, you're going to have to read that for me because I don't have reading glasses on.
Thank you. Upside down, I can tell you that.
Well,
Let's
I
begin.
told you.
This is made from the elm tree planted by, I am not exaggerating here, planted by Daniel Webster on his Elms farm in Franklin, New Hampshire. And at the very bottom it says, "Now New Hampshire orphans," is that what it's saying? Home. I think I'm correct.
And
It's
that
kinda
was
funny.
undoubtedly given to my father for one
Now
of his
New
many
Hampshire
things.
Orphans Home. Yes.
I did it okay. I did it okay. They're not going to fire me yet. Thank you. I thought of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I skied yesterday, so my knees are barking.
Where'd you go skiing?
Loon, I
Okay.
can't go too far, I'm tethered. This is gonna block. Well, I'll just
see.
do this and see if I can do this without,
You're good.
it likes to spin one direction.
This
this
is
way.
pretty incredible. Where did you
So,
get this?
I don't know if anybody remembers this. Oops, over here. But this was, when I was a kid, was the original, I'm gonna get that back down now, but that was the original spinner for the rotary penny sale for years and years, and made by either Ellen Westover directly or some of his guys in the Beebe River box shop. For my father, who ran our father,
Yeah.
who ran the rotary penny sale for my whole childhood.
Yeah.
I think he drew the short straw, but he liked to talk in front of people, you
Yeah.
know, and the Rotary Club, he was president of that plenty of times. And that always reminds me of.
I think he got introduced to that during his tour of duty as a heavy weapons instructor at Fort Leonard Wood
Yeah.
in 1945.
Wow. Thank you for bringing that in. Where did you get this?
It's among my parents' belongings,
Family.
and I don't remember specifically where it was. The first time I remember seeing it was in Russell Street in Dr. Bowles' house, and it was on my father's desk there, which was initially Dr. Bowles' desk. And so that would have been circa 1964 through 1966.
Wow.
That's my first memory of that.
We're trying to close shop right now, but I'm asking myself, have we forgotten anything? We've
There's
chatted
plenty more
for an
stories,
hour.
but how
Yeah.
deep do you want to delve?
I don't want to get into trouble, and I don't want you
yeah.
guys to get into trouble either.
I've been in and out of trouble all my life.
I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been my pleasure. These hours and days that we've spent together has been really fun for me. And like every interview we try to do, we now have it saved. And we also take all our notes, put them together, and we have a file. Whoa, we have a file on you. So, boy, you're going to get in trouble for what you shared
Too late.
over in our Historical Society. So I thank you
Great.
very, very much
Well, thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you for the
It's fun
opportunity.
to have some of the memories
Yes.
come to the surface
This is what
again.
this is all about. We're trying to save the memories through your stories, people. So in sometimes, please think of oral history. Think of taking those pictures. This is me. I say it every single time. Take the pictures that you have. What was it the other day? Someone was quoting a number. You must have 7,000 pictures that are on some of our cell phones. Do they ever get printed off? And when you do print them off, would you please identify the people, identify the event? And there's so many mediums out there right now, technological mediums, that we can save them, but so many of us are not doing that, and we're going to lose this history for the future generations. So again, thanks, gentlemen, it's been really a pleasure for me.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's been great. It's been great. People, we'll see you next time on the Memories of Plymouth. If you'd like to be a candidate in the future, please contact me. And as always, thank you for the Pemby Baker TV program for making it available to you.